Okay, so welcome back to the deep dive. And today we're kind of going down a path that I think a lot of people, unfortunately, might have some experience with,
Mm-hmm.
but maybe not fully understand all of the ins and outs of.
Yeah.
And that is what happens when you don't respond or can't pay a debt and the legal system gets involved to try to enforce it.
Right. Yeah, it can be a really scary thing when that happens, and it can be really confusing
Oh, yeah.
to know what your rights are and what the process is.
Yeah, and it can feel really overwhelming too because it feels like this big machine is suddenly
Right.
coming down on you and
Yeah. Yeah.
you're not really sure who to turn to or
Exactly.
Oh,
So, yeah, and people often just kind of stick their head in the sand
yeah.
and hope it'll go away.
Yeah.
But
That never works.
no, it usually makes things worse.
So we're going to try to unpack this a little bit and give you some hopefully helpful information based on
Yeah,
some actual legal expertise.
that's right. We're going to be looking at information today from MCHM Abogados. That's MCHM Abogados,
Okay.
a multidisciplinary law firm
Okay.
based in Almeria, Spain.
Okay.
And they've laid out a really clear roadmap of what happens when a debt is legally pursued and you, as the person who owes the money, don't take the right steps
Okay.
to address it.
So yeah, it's kind of your essential guide to understanding like, okay,
Right.
this is what can happen.
Yeah. And it can be quite frightening, actually, when
Yeah.
you look at
Yeah.
what can happen.
So let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
Where does this whole process begin?
So the first step is the creditor,
Mhm.
the person or the institution that you owe the money to.
Uh-huh.
They start things off. They file a formal request with the court.
Okay, so it's not like they just show up at your door and start.
No. This is a legal process.
Yeah.
So it starts in the court,
Okay.
and they have to have proof that the debt exists.
Okay.
And that proof is a document called an executive title.
Okay. An executive title. So that sounds very official.
Yes, it's a legal term.
Yeah.
And it basically means that they have to have something that proves that the debt is real
Okay.
and that you are legally obligated to pay it.
So what are some examples of what an executive title might be?
Well, it could be a court sentence.
Okay.
Like if you went to court
Mm-hmm.
and the judge ruled that you owe this money,
Right.
it could be an arbitration award,
Okay.
which is where you and the creditor agreed to have a third party
Okay.
decide the case.
All right.
Or it could be other documents
Yeah.
that are legally binding
Okay.
that say that you owe this money.
So it's not just their word against yours. They have to have like
Exactly.
proof.
You can't just say, oh, I don't owe you money.
Yeah.
You have to have something
Yeah.
that's legally recognized.
Okay, so they've got this proof. They file it with the court.
Right.
What happens next?
Well, the next step is that the court officially notifies you,
Okay.
the debtor, that this legal process has started.
So they come knocking on my door now, or do I get something in the mail?
Usually you get something in the mail.
Okay.
It's a formal notification
Sure.
from the court.
And this is like, okay, we know you owe this money, and now we're...
Right. It's basically saying, we've received a claim against you
Uh-huh.
for this debt,
Okay.
and you have a certain amount of time to respond.
Okay.
This is really important.
Yeah.
This notification will tell you how long you have
Uh-huh.
to either pay the debt
Okay.
or to file a formal opposition to the enforcement.
Okay. So this is where I can say, hey, wait a minute.
I got it.
Don't actually owe this.
Right. Or I owe a different amount,
Mhm.
or there's some reason why I shouldn't have to pay this.
Okay.
Now, this is a really crucial point because a lot of people, they get this notification
Mm-hmm.
and they either panic
Yeah.
or they just ignore it.
Yeah.
They think, oh, it'll go away,
Yeah.
but it won't.
Right.
And if you don't respond within that time frame,
Uh-huh.
the debt is legally presumed accepted by you.
Well, so that's like, I'm just saying, okay, yeah, you're right. I do owe this,
Exactly.
even though I might not.
Right. And at that point,
Uh-huh.
the legal process just moves forward without your input.
Wow. Okay.
So it's really, really important to
Yeah.
respond to this notification.
Yeah. Don't just stick your head in the sand.
Exactly.
That's a really important takeaway.
Yeah.
So let's say I don't respond
Okay.
or I can't come up with the money to pay.
Right.
What happens next?
Well, the next stage that MCHM Abogados outlines
Right.
is
Mhm.
what's called the embargo de bienes,
Okay.
which basically means the seizure of your assets.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So if you don't pay
Uh-huh.
and you haven't successfully challenged the debt
Yeah.
during that notification period,
Uh-huh.
the court can issue an order to take your stuff.
Okay. So like what kind of stuff?
Well, it could be a lot of things.
Okay.
First of all, bank accounts.
Okay.
They can freeze your bank accounts
Uh-huh.
and take the money.
Well.
They can also garnish your wages, which means that they can take money directly from your paycheck before you even get it.
So my employer is sending money to the court.
Exactly. They can also seize real estate,
Oh, wow.
like your house
Okay.
or any other property you own.
And vehicles as well?
Yes, vehicles too.
Okay.
Cars,
Yeah.
motorcycles, anything like that.
So basically, anything of value that I own,
Pretty much, yeah.
they can come and take.
And they can also take what they call other assets,
Okay.
which could be investments,
Mm-hmm.
valuable personal items,
Right.
and even future income streams in some cases.
Oh, wow. So it's not just what I have right now.
Right.
It's what I might make in the future.
In some cases, yes.
So they're really trying to make sure that they can recover this money.
Exactly. The goal here
Mm.
is to ensure that the creditor gets paid
Okay.
what they're legally entitled to.
And so they take all this stuff, and then what happens to it?
Well, it gets sold,
Okay.
usually at a public auction.
Okay, so this is what we see in the movies. Like, they come in and take the furniture and the art and
Exactly.
put it all up for auction.
Yeah, they have a big auction,
Okay.
and people bid on your stuff.
Right.
And the money from the auction goes to pay off the debt.
Okay, so the money goes to the creditor.
Right.
Correct.
But it's not just the original amount of the debt.
Okay.
It also includes any interest that is accumulated
Oh, wow.
on the debt over time,
Okay.
as well as all the costs of the legal procedure.
So the court fees and all of that.
Right. All the court fees, the administrative expenses, all of that.
So it could end up being way more than I originally owed.
Yes, absolutely.
Just by not taking care of it early on.
Right. And that's why it's so important to try to work something out with the creditor
Yeah.
as early as possible.
Before it gets to this point. Okay, so we've seen what can happen in terms of like my stuff
Right.
getting taken and sold,
Yeah.
but it doesn't stop there, right?
Right.
What are some of the other consequences?
Well, one of the biggest ones is damage to your credit history.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So when you don't pay a debt
Uh-huh.
and it goes through this legal enforcement process,
Yeah.
it gets reported to credit agencies.
Okay, and those are the companies that track like how good you are with money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They keep track of your credit score,
Uh-huh.
which is basically a measure of how likely you are to repay your debts.
And that affects whether or not I can get loans in the future.
Absolutely. It can make it very difficult
Okay.
to get loans, mortgages, credit cards, even rent an apartment,
Yeah.
because landlords often check your credit score.
Yeah, and it also affects the interest rates I get.
Right. If you have a low credit score,
Uh-huh.
you're going to have to pay higher interest rates,
Right.
which means that borrowing money becomes much more expensive.
Yeah. So it's not just about this one debt.
Yeah.
It's about my whole financial future.
Exactly.
Hmm?
It can really limit your options,
Wow.
and it can make it much harder
Uh-huh.
to achieve your financial goals.
Okay, so that's a huge consequence.
Yeah, it's a big one.
And then, of course, there are also legal fees and all that.
Right on top of the original debt.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to pay legal fees.
Yeah.
Court costs, collection costs, if the creditor had to hire a debt collector,
Mm-hmm.
all of that adds up.
Wow. Okay, so we've talked about the financial impact, the legal impact. Right. What about the personal impact?
Well, that's something that a lot of people don't think about,
Uh-huh.
but it can be really significant.
Yeah.
The stress and anxiety of going through this process
Right.
can be overwhelming.
And it can affect my family too, right?
Absolutely. It could put a strain on your relationships
Mm-hmm.
and your overall well-being.
Yeah. Okay, so this all sounds pretty bleak.
It can be.
Like, are there any options?
There are.
Okay.
It's not a hopeless situation,
Okay.
but it's important to act quickly
Okay.
and to know what your options are.
Okay, so what can I do?
Well, the first thing you should do
Mm-hmm.
is try to negotiate with a creditor. See if you can work out a payment plan
Mm-hmm.
before things get too far down the legal road.
So just call them up and say,
Yes,
hey,
exactly.
can we work something out?
Yeah, say, look, I'm having some financial difficulties,
Huh.
but I want to pay this debt.
Right.
Can we work out a payment plan that I can afford?
Okay. And they might be open to that.
Often they are,
Okay.
because it's easier for them
Uh-huh.
than to have to go through the whole legal process.
Right. Okay, so that's the first thing I should try.
Exactly.
What if I can't afford to pay anything right now?
Well, then you can look into debt restructuring.
Okay, what's that?
It's basically where you work with the creditor
Uh-huh.
to change the terms of the debt.
Okay.
So you might be able to reduce your monthly payments,
Uh-huh.
extend the repayment period,
Okay.
or even get a reduction in the total amount you owe.
Wow. Okay.
It depends on your situation
Uh-huh.
and the creditor's willingness to negotiate.
Right. Okay, so negotiation is key.
Yes, absolutely.
What if I've already gotten that notification from the court?
Okay.
Like, what should I do then?
Well, at that point, it's really important
Mm-hmm.
to talk to a lawyer.
Okay.
A lawyer who specializes in debt law can help you understand your rights
Okay.
and explore any legal defenses you might have.
So there might be ways to fight this.
Yes, there might be.
Okay.
It depends on the specifics of your case.
Okay, so I shouldn't just assume that I'm automatically going to lose?
No, not at all.
Okay.
A lawyer can help you figure out
Uh-huh.
what your best course of action is.
Okay, so talk to a lawyer.
Yes, and the sooner the better.
Right.
Don't wait until things are really bad.
Yeah.
Get legal advice as early as possible.
Okay, so for people listening, like, what's the main takeaway here?
The main takeaway is that you should never ignore a debt.
Right.
If you're having trouble paying it,
Yeah, huh?
reach out to the creditor
Yeah.
and try to work something out.
Okay.
And if you're facing legal action,
Yeah.
talk to a lawyer. Don't just hope it'll go away.
Yeah, because it won't.
It won't.
And it could get a lot worse.
Much worse.
Okay, so be proactive.
Yes, be proactive and be informed.
Know your rights.
Exactly.
And get help if you need it.
Yes, there's no shame in asking for help,
Right.
and there are resources available to help you.
Okay.
You just have to reach out.
So thinking about all of this and everything we've learned today from MCHM Abogados,
Right.
what can people listening do to make sure that they stay on top of their financial obligations?
Yeah, that's a great question.
You know, and really understand how the legal system works
Right.
in these situations.
One thing they can do is educate themselves.
Okay.
Read up on debt and personal finance.
Uh-huh.
There are lots of resources available online and in libraries.
Right?
They can also talk to financial advisors
Okay.
or credit counselors who can help them create a budget
Yeah.
and manage their debt.
Okay. And knowing this information can not only help them,
Right.
but it can help them maybe help friends and family as well,
Exactly.
who might be going through some of these same things.
Yeah, because unfortunately,
Oh.
debt is a really common problem,
It is.
and a lot of people are struggling with it.
So if you can be that person for someone who
Uh-huh.
can offer some advice or some help,
Yeah,
that can make a big difference.
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this has been a really informative deep dive, I think.
Yeah,
Hopefully for our listeners, a little less scary now.
I hope so.
That you know what to potentially expect
Right?
and know that there are options.
Exactly.
So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.
Thanks for having me.